Well, hello friends, Coach Bob with you today, and today we are going to be talking about a very, very visited subject. It's one that I get more questions about than any other thing in regards to the Spyder. Whenever a rider moves over, certainly from the two-wheel world where they've been riding for decades, and all of a sudden they get on the Spyder and they are like, man, I am all over the road. I'm never going to learn to do this. This is miserable. I hate it. I love the way it performs, and I just can't. I'm all over the road. I don't know what to do. I need help. Is this ever going to get better? I have good news for you. Today I'm going to share a few things that are going to make your life a lot sweeter, make this a lot more simple, make this transition a lot easier for you. So before we get going on that, if you would, give the video a big old fat thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that jazz. Enough of that. The sales pitch is over. All right. Well, you know, I got an email earlier this week from a guy who had been riding motorcycles for 30 years, and he's had the Spyder for 3 months, and he's like, Coach, I'm not getting any better, and I'm beginning to think that I've made a mistake. The Spyder's been great, it's fun, but I'm all over the road, and I don't know what to do. So this video is for you if you're experiencing that sort of thing. So first, we're going to start out with a very simple premise. This is almost childlike, I know, and you're going to be insulted, but please don't be. All right. Rule 1 with riding the Spyder: less is more. Less is more. So what do I mean by that? So I'm going to set the cruise control on the old Spyder here. I'm at 60 miles an hour. I'm setting the cruise. This road's a little bouncy. But before I do this, some knucklehead's going to say, Coach, you're telling people to ride without their hands. You're going to get people killed. I am not telling you to ride without your hands. I'm not telling you to do that, okay? I'm showing you something. It's an observation point. There it is. It's just something for you to look at so you understand. So here I am. I'm riding without a net. I'm putting my life in my hands for you. Here we go. The Spyder wants to go in a straight line. It wants to go in a straight line. That's what it wants to do. Now you'll have some drift, right? Because you have the angle of the road. You know, you have a crown. It may push you to the right or to the left a little bit. But generally speaking, the Spyder wants to go in a straight line. When you grasp that concept alone and realize that your feedback is probably impeding your ability to ride smoothly in a straight line, that mindset alone, knowing that the Spyder's default is a straight line and you're the one moving it out of line, that just seeing it that way will change your whole approach to the Spyder. So understand the Spyder wants to go in a straight line. You're providing minimal feedback. You know, if every time you drift a little to the left or a little to the right, you're pushing hard. Let me explain why you're doing that. On a motorcycle, to a conventional motorcycle, you have a triple tree, and you have a gyroscopic force occurring. That front wheel is just spinning like crazy, right? That centrifugal force makes that wheel and that front end want to stay in a line. And therefore, you counter steer on a motorcycle. You steer on a Spyder. You're doing the exact opposite on this of what you would do on a conventional motorcycle. Here's what I mean by that. All of this force that is keeping the motorcycle in a straight line it forces that front fork to stay straight. Now, when you turn left on a two-wheeler like this guy's on right here, what you're going to do, you're going to push with your left hand. So you're actually turning to the right to make your motorcycle turn to the left. Whether you realize you're doing that doesn't matter. That's what's happening. Now, when you do that because of those gyroscopic forces trying to keep that thing in a straight line, you're pushing pretty darn hard. You may not realize how hard you're pushing, but you are. It's body weight, it's momentum, it's forces going on. So in order to go left, I would push left. Now, of course, if I did that on the Spyder, I would go over in the ditch. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in order to go left, like on this curve, I would mildly be pressing left to go around this curve on my motorcycle, or I would just simply lean with a mild press left. Okay. Now on a Spyder, it is the exact opposite of that. So you're taking decades of mental wiring. Your brain has been mapped to react a certain way. And because of that, you get on this and now everything is backwards. And the Spyder has, I'm going to say it, you ready? The Spyder has power steering. Now the Ryker doesn't have power steering, but the Spyder does. So now you don't have to apply hardly any feedback as far as force. You don't have to lean. Now it's all in your hands. It is completely different. It is completely different. And whether you like it, whether you're a person in the camp that goes, well, that's why I don't like the Spyder, well, that's fine. Or that's why I love the Spyder, that's fine too. Either one of those answers are acceptable, obviously. And you have to make that decision for yourself. But I'm going to come up here, I've got to make a right-hand turn. Well, in order to incorporate that turn, normally you push and then you steer once you get below a certain speed. Now on this, I just steer. I don't have to counter steer. So I've got my right blinker on. Here I go. I'm going to push with my left arm to make me go right. Here we go. That's it. I just basically, I press my arm out and I make that turn. Okay. So it's power steering. It wants to go straight. And you're steering, you're not counter steering. If you could simply get the old less is more and understand that everything is now backwards and that it requires a minuscule amount of force because you have power steering, and those gyroscopic forces aren't forcing that fork to stay straight. It's different now. It's different now. Now obviously the forces and the alignment and all of that, I'm not going to get into all that, but basically the Spyder wants to go in a straight line, but it's much easier for us to do this, to oversteer. We're going to talk about how to stop that. But once you understand the science behind it, it makes it much easier to grasp why you're doing what you're doing. You're not doing anything wrong. I mean, it's wrong, but you're doing what your brain has learned to do for the last 30 years, and it's going to take a little time for your brain to adjust, but it will. Now, you know that I ride two-wheelers and three-wheelers alike. I have a little emotional checklist that I go through every time I get on the Spyder and every time I get on a two-wheeler that sets me up for success, that tells me what I'm on and what my body is going to do. It is not natural to move from one thing to another and all of a sudden, I mean, there is muscle memory that occurs, and because I sit on something, I know where I'm going, but I consciously think about what I'm going to do before I ride. I visualize steering versus counter steering, that sort of thing. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is pushing and pulling. And we're going to, this little road up here has some little twisties on it. I hate that phrase, but we're gonna get up here. So I'm going to turn right. Here we go. I've got my blinker on. I'm going to push with my left hand. All right. My right hand is occupying the space, but it's not really doing anything. It's just there. That's all I did. I just pushed with one hand. Now, would it have mattered had I pulled? Now I'm going left. Now I'm pulling with my left hand. Does it matter if I push or I pull? No, it doesn't. You can make your decision on what you're going to do. Whether you're going like this one here, I'm going to push with my left hand. Now I have people ask me often, now my right hand is on the throttle because it has to adjust the throttle, but it's holding that throttle like I would hold my 4-month-old granddaughter's hand. It's just there. It's gently there. No, I'm not telling you not to hold on to the handlebar. Use common sense, okay? There is that little thing in there, okay? There's a mild cut to the right. I'm just going to press a little bit with my left hand. It's almost I can't even discern that I'm doing anything. Because I'm ambidextrous in the general sense of the word. I mean, I can drive a nail with either hand. I'm very comfortable using either arm on anything that I do. So there are times that if the curve is really, really sharp, I'll run out of room to reach with my left hand. I'll pull with my right hand. My brain, I don't even think about which one I'm going to utilize anymore. My brain adjusts. It goes, that curve is sharp, that curve is steep. You're gonna press, like this one here, I'm gonna press with my left hand. I'm not gonna pull with my right, I'm just gonna press with my left. I'm gonna trail right around that curve. Look at that, nothing to it. So the idea is push or pull, don't push and pull. Now, what if you get in a turn and you're like midway through and you go, I need to pull because I've run out of elbow room, so to speak. Then transition from one hand to the other. You can instantaneously relax one hand and the other hand can take over. But what you don't want to do is push and pull. Here's what happens when you push and pull. Okay, I'm curved. You see that? Because when I do that, because this thing has power steering, that's what I'm going to do. That's what's going to happen. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. And for those, this is a very serious thing. When you're on the interstate doing 75 miles an hour and you're like that, it's disconcerting for the driver. It's terrifying for the passenger. And you need to get that smooth. I mean, you need to have that perfection smooth. Now this one, I'm just pulling with my left hand. Now I'm going to transition to my right. Now I'm pushing with my right. My left hand is just sitting here on the handlebar. It's there for security and safety, but it's not doing anything as far as the steering is concerned. This time, I'm going to go to the right. I'm going to push with my left hand. Here I am pushing, 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 pushing. Now I'm just going to pull. Left hand is not doing anything. So you can transition from one hand to the other. Is it as smooth as just using one hand? Even though your brain does a pretty good job, it's not. One hand can always do better than the two. Always. It will always be smoother because there's less variables in that equation. All right. So now you understand less is more. You're going to push or you're going to pull. You're not going to push and pull at the same time. You can push and pull, just not at the same time. All right. Because if you push and pull, this is what you do. And that's not smooth. And smooth is good. All right. Now, when I have people tell me, Coach, I've been riding for 3 months and I'm all over the road. Those two things right there, if you focus on those two things, you're going to be fine. But I'm going to show you another thing that is going to really help you. Now, I'm checking behind me so I don't get run over. Make sure when you do this particular thing, in fact, when you do all of your skill building, make sure you're on a road that it's not crazy, you don't have a lot of traffic on. And any of these skills, you're doing them at your own risk. Okay, so here I am, I'm at 0 miles an hour. Okay, all right, I'm accelerating up and I'm going to do 20. That's all I'm going to do, 20 miles an hour. Here I am at 20. It's hard to go this slow, by the way. I'm in second gear, for those who are curious. 20 miles an hour. If you can hold a perfect line at 20 miles an hour, you're ready for your next step. Now you go up to 25. I'm in third gear at 25. If you can hold it perfectly smooth at 25 miles an hour, you're ready for the next step. So speed on up to 30. 30 miles an hour. When you're perfectly smooth, there's a big bump in the road, big hole in the road. We're going to hit it on purpose. Here you go, watch this. Clunk, clunk, right? Kept my line just fine. Okay. And then you see where I'm going, then 35. If you're smooth at 35, move it on up to 40. I'm in 5th gear at 40, by the way. Perfectly smooth, perfectly smooth. Nothing to it. 45. And as you do it, don't just do it going, I'm going to do 30 miles an hour. My goal is to just stay at 30 miles an hour. It's not your goal. Your goal is for 30 miles an hour to be smooth. So this is where you develop the muscle memory to use your left or your right arm to where you're pushing or you're pulling. Let me explain why it's important to do that at a low speed and a high speed. On a motorcycle, do you know that your brain is constantly adjusting? Below a certain speed, you actually steer on a motorcycle. In a parking lot, you steer a motorcycle. And on the road at 40 miles an hour, you counter steer a motorcycle. On the Spyder, you're always steering the Spyder. You're never counter steering. You're always steering the Spyder. Your brain is remapping by going slow and speeding up gradually. Your brain is learning, it's remapping, it's learning you're steering all the time. Your brain's not adjusting into another world, another zone based on speed. All right. I'm going to tell you, if you will, like say today, you go, all right, I'm going to just do, my goal is to work my way up to 45 miles an hour. And you do it slowly to where you're really comfortable. And if you have to take a week at 45 miles an hour, then take a week. I'm serious, take a week if that's what it takes. Whatever you have to do to get smooth at 45, because if you're rough at 45, at 50 you're gonna suck. Let me tell you. And at 60 you're gonna be bouncing around like a ping pong ball in a fruit jar. So gradually build your speed up. Once you get up to around 60, 65 miles an hour and it's smooth, and I'm going to show you what you're going to be doing when you're at 65 miles an hour. So this road that I'm turning on is Highway 59, Veterans Memorial Parkway. This road looks relatively smooth from a camera, but let's talk about it a little bit. This road is not smooth. You can see the sides of the road. You got broken up pavement, and there are little bumps, and there's a crown on it and all that stuff. So this road is not smooth. It's beautiful. Don't get bad. It is a beautiful ride, but smooth it is not, and flat it is not. So here's my goal. I got this truck in front of me. I'm gonna kind of let him run away from me for a minute, because he, you know, a lot of these guys, they get out here, they do 40 miles an hour. You know, they live out here and they're not in a hurry, and I get it. I'm not in a hurry most of the time either. I'm not in a hurry now. Okay. All right, so here we go. We're gonna speed up to about 65. Got that big old bird in the way. Get out the way, Mr. Bird. Get out the way. Now you realize I slowed down big time for that guy. If that guy flew in my direction and I hit him at 60 miles an hour, they've had guys break their necks with a big old bird hitting the top of their head. So be careful with those guys. All right. Guys doing a good service there, mowing the old grass. So here I am, 65 miles an hour. That's 64. Let's speed it up 1 more mile an hour. Now, the Spyder, if I were to just, now the road obviously is not perfectly straight, so you're going to have to give it a little feedback to get around the curves. Because this road, there's bumping going on, there's bouncing going on, the Spyder, every now and then you see it started to take a right-hand turn. So I have to correct that. All you're doing, if you'll think about it this way, your hands are on the handlebars. I'm lightly gripping. I'm gripping for safety and security, but I'm not crushing it. I'm not giving it the Vulcan death grip. I'm holding my 4-month-old granddaughter's hand. All I do is I'm riding in a line. The Spyder wants to go straight. I'm remembering that because my brain has learned all of that. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm resetting. I'm rebooting the Spyder. If it moves a little to the right, I'm going to press it back in a line. And then the Spyder, I've put it back in its default mode. Default is the Spyder wants to go in a straight line. It drifts to the left. I push a little bit with my left hand. I bring it right back in a straight line. The Spyder is in its default mode, and I'm providing minimal feedback to simply put the Spyder in default. It wants to go straight. Now you have to be careful, because obviously if you hit something, we're going to talk, here's a term that is used a lot in the Jeep world. It's called bump steer. That's when you hit a bump, it turns your wheels on your Jeep. It's very frustrating, you know, if you have big old giant tires and you got that solid axle up front, you'll hit a bump and those wheels will turn and the axle kind of bounces around. And it can, man, you can be all over the road. You can be in the other lane pretty quick. They also have a term they call death wobble. If you've never experienced it, it's well worth the price of admission. Obviously, the Spyder is not that crazy like that, but we actually do experience bump steer on the Spyder. You'll hit a bump, and it will turn the Spyder. Knowing that, again, you're simply putting the Spyder back into its place of success. If you try to oversteer it back into position, you're going to do this. It bump steers, let's say it wants to go right, so I'm going to kind of press to where I'm drifting to the right. And if you, oh crap, you do that, that's what you're going to do. That's the force that you would use on a motorcycle, but on the Spyder, that's way too much. You're simply, I'm setting it back up for success. I'm drifting, I'm simply pressing it back into place to set it up in a nice straight line in its default mode. That's it. So if you can remember that, less is more, right? Less is more. Push or pull. Gradually build your speed. And when you experience bump steer, simply put the Spyder in a line on the road again. You're simply correcting the bounce. You're not oversteering. Oversteering's a boo-boo. Oversteering's really scary for somebody on the back. I'm going to speed up here, and I'm doing, we'll speed on up to about 70. I can ride like this all day long. My hands are relaxed. Now I'm not going to go too fast because they've got these guys up here working. I'm going to slow down here. But I can ride like that all day, every day, and not be exhausted and bounce around on what you would consider, in most areas, they consider some of these roads I ride on, they consider them cow pads. They're so rough. Some of them are smooth, but most of them are pretty rough. They're beautiful again, but they are not smooth. All right. So there you have it, all the techniques you need to be able to steer this thing smoothly to where you won't feel like you're all over the road. And that's really, really important. I get to ride one of my favorite roads. Now I'm going to head back in via Miccosukee Road. All right, so there you have it, another one in the book. So you, yes, you go out, buy the motorcycle of your dreams, eat right, take care of yourself. Yeah. And remember, if you're not having fun, you are definitely doing it wrong. Now you go seize the day, and I'll see you on the road real